Go.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. Anthony and Skylar will take it from here. Master Chief, out.
Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. My name is Anthony Nicolosi.
And I'm Skylar Sokol.
And today we are talking about how everybody seems to be failing at creating compelling and engaging big budget AAA experiences that keep players around. Specifically, we are talking about this in relation to the recent news that Crucible, Amazon's it's a first-person shooter, Skylar? Is it a first-person shooter?
Yeah. It's like a capture point based. I can't even remember if it was third person or first person. It was bad.
Yeah, okay. Skylar actually played it. I just recently checked out the promotional material after. So we won't necessarily, Skylar will, but I won't really have anything along the lines of like whether the game was good or not. But the fact of the matter remains that they spent reportedly 6 years developing this thing.
Free-to-play, team-based, PvP, action shooter.
Whoa, that sounds so good. The shareholders are going to love that. They are going to A-OK that shit and give us all the money we need for development. And that's what happened. So for 6 years, they developed this thing. And unfortunately, it's dead within months, correct?
Yeah, it's third person. It kind of felt like I don't know if you remember the game Lawbreakers. That was another game that sort of tried to jump on the same genre and also failed. It's sort of like Overwatch syndrome. Overwatch was the game that really like started this genre and popularized this kind of team-based PvP non-wartime kind of game. And class-based with like each character having their own unique personality, unique lore, that kind of stuff, right? Overwatch really succeeded at this, and a lot of games have tried to follow in its footsteps, notably games like Paladins, which was horrible, Lawbreakers, which just fell apart, this game now, Crucible. Like, the characters are unique and cool. Sean and I both really liked the character designs. They were interesting. They had cool powers, but just the gameplay felt so stale. It was slow. It just... it just was so milquetoast, so generic.
Well, in addition to that, there was the recent news that they didn't necessarily shut down their multiplayer servers yet, but the Avengers game on PC was struggling to maintain more than 1,000 concurrent players.
Yeah,
and Avengers just recently came out.
Now that's really interesting, right? I heard that the single player got reasonable reception. It wasn't bad. Anecdotally, I heard some people play it who liked it. I do know some people who did not really like it, but I thought the single player read pretty well. But it's interesting that they were trying to move that game to be multiplayer, like persistent multiplayer after that. Seems like if you're going to make a legit ass Avengers game, it should just be like a co-op story experience and then the game's done.
Well, the report was that it's like a looter beat 'em up kind of a thing, and the loot sucks.
I mean, yeah, because like, why would you get loot? Like, Thor doesn't need to upgrade his fucking Thor hammer, right? Like, he's got like the hammer. He's got Mjolnir.
It's true. Like you're going in as a superhero. That's already kind of
you're like a superhero. OP. You're like, I need a better cape. Sorry, like my Superman cape isn't I know Superman's not an Avenger. My Superman cape is not aerodynamic enough. Let me get a better cape.
Man. I wonder if maybe that's part of the challenge they faced on that front. Is like when they were making the game, the reason why they can't make compelling upgrades is because you're already so super powerful. Right.
What does the Hulk get? Like, what is Hulk's gear? Does he get like?
Yeah, maybe that's why it sucks. Is like, is that very reason?
Does he get like sick like Nike sneakers that are like extra large?
Strictly cosmetic. Yeah. So I mean, you would think
more breathable pants.
That was made by Square Enix too.
Yeah, right? That's a very good
know how
company.
To make a long, filled out experience, right? Not like some off the block, brand new
But
studio.
but here's the deal, right? Square Enix's experiences traditionally have been single player experiences, like Final Fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Final Fantasy 15, very well loved game, single player experience. Right? There's not like this multiplayer component that's trying to make the game live beyond its life cycle, right?
I think part of the discussion that's interesting to me is that on paper, you take a successful. When we were just going through the rumors that Microsoft could potentially be buying a Japanese studio, I think Square Enix was valued at somewhere around like $5 billion or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a very successful publisher and you add on I would probably say the single biggest intellectual property in entertainment right now in Marvel, and you still can't make a game.
Well, it wasn't developed by Square Enix, though, right? It was developed by Crystal Dynamics.
Square Enix is the publisher.
Right. Sorry. Crystal Dynamics is the company who made Tomb Raider. The new Tomb Raider games, all of which had very good reception, all of which single-player experiences. I think this is the big issue. You go to a studio that's really good, and you say, hey, make us a game unlike other games you've made. Make us a game in this genre that you don't have experience designing in, and make it compelling enough that it'll have a lifespan beyond just people completing the single-player story, which is all anyone fucking wants from an Avengers game, is to be able to play as the superheroes. No one needs loot. No one needs that shit. Just give me a cool Avengers story. Let me be a superhero. Let me punch shit as the Hulk and throw cars and great.
No, it's true. Some reviews were likening the approach to like they were trying to pull off a Destiny for Avengers, which like on paper, right, seems pretty enticing, I'm sure, and that's probably why they
I don't
went
think
for
it makes sense. I don't think it seems enticing on paper.
And I think you have the problems that you talked about, but like on paper, if you could pull it off and you could create a universe where it's successful, you're like with the Avengers and everything, and they have this Hawkeye DLC coming, provide them with story content. The Marvel universe, you could fucking go forever with DLC because of all the stuff they have inside of there. It looks good on paper, but this is just showing how hard it is to make a game that people it's compelling enough to draw.
And let me say,
right?
I think an IP, a popular IP, is something that gets people interested in the game initially. Like an IP is what gets you to see the game, see the marketing, buy the game. But an IP does not carry a game's lifespan. I think the fact that it's the Avengers makes people be like, wow, it's an Avengers game. That's hype. But then it's not going to be like, oh, I'm playing an Avengers game. That means I want to continue playing like a less interesting gameplay experience because I love Avengers. I don't think that rolls that well. Like Pokemon Go, people played it because it was Pokemon initially, but then eventually it died out very fast because the Pokemon, not very fast, but it died out because the Pokemon hype was the thing that got people interested, but it's not something that keeps people there. Except for the super diehard fans of the thing or who are going to play any experience anyway. It doesn't matter what the experience is.
Well, I want to also touch on getting back to Crucible. One thing that you said, because in addition to what you're saying, and there's a particular player market, if you will, for a certain genre of experience, right? Like there's a certain amount of players that are going to be interested in experience, and if there's already compelling experiences for that available to them, their time is a finite thing, right? So them playing Crucible means they're not playing Overwatch. But if Overwatch is a way better version of the experience for them, like why would they play Crucible? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you have, I think, I wonder how in some of these scenarios it's just like, oh, this is such, we've got so many resources available to us, and we're going to put so much money into the marketing, blah, blah. It's got to work.
I mean,
there's
like
just a lot of players, right? Like, I don't know.
Yes. Look at Valorant. I think Valorant is a great example of this. Valorant took CSGO, a really fucking old game, and like reskinned it and made it different and added like characters, right? And all this, did the Overwatch thing with it basically. And Valorant is very polished. It's very well done, very well made, right? They did a lot of effort, huge marketing push, right? All that shit. And it's still like there are a lot of diehard CSGO players stick with CSGO, and people, pro Valorant players, have even gone back to CSGO. It's still very popular, not to say it didn't succeed, but like I'm just saying, even with a game that's that old, it's hard to move people away from the core game in the genre. It's really hard. You really have to create an extremely polished and potentially extremely innovative experience that provides people with a reason to change.
Yep. It's interesting. I was thinking, you're right. Like, I have seen that a lot of people have gone back to CS:GO and stuff. You see those you see people saying that. On the other hand, I do think Valorant did an admirable job at trying to introduce some novelty to that experience with the rework of the classes and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I think Valorant did it great, and I think that's why Valorant is successful. Even though there are players going back, it's successful. It's not closing down anytime soon.
Right. It's 100%.
Right.
It's not, and even Crucible was free, right?
Yes.
You said it was free.
Yep.
So it's not just because Valorant's free or whatever.
Right.
I think they figured out a way to make a compelling option in that space. If you like the CS:GO implementation better, or like Valorant can be something that you play next to CS:GO, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think what Valorant did is it didn't necessarily steal the core audience from CS:GO. It took the people who liked CS:GO but have moved on from it and brought them back to that genre. Like me, right? Like I liked CS:GO. I liked the concept of the game. It's really satisfying for me, but I wasn't playing CS:GO ever anymore. That game's old as hell. No way. But Valorant's like, hey, new experience in this genre, right?
Maybe that's why people are interested. It's just hey, there's something new along the lines of CS:GO, right?
Totally.
That's true. It's something. You see this a lot in the shooter market. I mean, you see it in Hyperscape, right? That was the Ubisoft Battle Royale?
Yeah, what happened to that? Is that game even out yet? I don't even. Did it release? It released for real, right?
It's released.
I think so.
But I think that's just another example where I don't think it created a compelling enough experience to draw you away from. This actually, the battle royales is an interesting thing. Fortnite. If I take Fortnite out of the picture, there was H1Z1. Battle Royale at the beginning is always the first one that I thought was like interesting.
That and PUBG were like the big ones.
Yeah, and then PUBG showed up, and then you have now Warzone from COD. I just always kept thinking. I kept reading chat at the same time. It's such a bad idea for me.
Yeah,
Yes, my little monkey brain.
Yeah,
but if you have the H1Z1 King of the Hill. PUBG came by, was just basically the same thing, but a little better. Like H1Z1,
not much better, but a little better.
And you were just, everybody was sitting there waiting. Like, once somebody makes a polished, not super buggy version of PUBG, it's gonna work.
Hello, Fortnite, and it worked super well.
Yep. Hello, Fortnite, and then now Warzone. I think that's why Warzone is able to hold a population outside of its COD. I think the fact that PUBG didn't innovate in a way that could like really differentiate it against the eventually gonna happen COD battle royale. Now it's like
Warzone is like the realistic option. Yeah, you got like 3 huge battle royales in the space that I think would be very hard to topple. Fortnite for like that cartoony style. The building mechanic is super unique and super loved, right? Then you got Apex Legends for like the future sci-fi people. Then you got Warzone for like the war, like COD people, right? And all 3 of them have their own niche in the genre. Crucible, like where does it go? What is it for? Who's it for? I don't know who that game's for. Who's looking for a game like that? No one. People who like Battlefield? I don't know. Who plays Battlefield? Like, because that's sort of what it is. It's like a capture point objective based game, right? The thing I would compare it most to is like Battlefield with Overwatch characters, which kind of sounds sick, but they just really did a bad job with it, in my opinion. It's just the gameplay felt way too slow.
Yeah, I think it's this realization of like that. This market, the battle royale market, whatever market you're looking at, those players are already invested in something else. If you can't bring something around with a novelty to draw them away from it,
or in the case of Crucible, I don't think anyone was even cared about that genre. Like I don't even think there are players invested in games in that genre. It's just like a genre that's not popular right now. Why would you make that? No, unless you're like an indie studio, and I wonder, they're kind of an indie studio.
In development for 6 years,
right?
So maybe it wasn't supposed to take so long to come out.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I bet you that is right.
So like maybe it was only supposed to take 3 years, but they, it's a new, from what I understand. Maybe I'm talking a little incorrectly here, but like that. It's a new studio or something within the Amazon thing.
I believe so.
They kind of got spun up for the project. So there's, That's in itself a hard thing to do. On top of that, I can only imagine what it's like to be a new team with a ton of money thrown at you, with like some very specific like engagement requirements that you're shooting for.
Right. Right, and that's a big thing too, right? This isn't like a lovable indie studio that this game is coming out of that people are like, oh wow, this studio really had passion put it into this. And not to say that the people who developed Crucible didn't have passion. I'm sure they did, the people who were there. But the visibility into that is so much less because they're a part of Amazon. Right? People aren't going to give you like you're a cute indie studio that tried really hard and you're really passionate, so this game should get support like card. Even though that's sort of what it probably was, even though it's within this bubble of Amazon. But like because it's in Amazon, like those people are fucked, right? If they didn't make like a perfect experience, they don't have any like backup cards that are like, oh, they're an indie studio, they should get like some like I want to support them because they're indie and they tried hard.
I mean, that's kind of what I did with Fall Guys. Was when Fall Guys first came out and everybody was in it, I was like, even if it like isn't super my thing, which is what it ended up turning out to be, I was like, well, it's a small indie studio and I'm down for like supporting them. Small,
right.
Like, not super small with being published.
Not small anymore.
Not small anymore.
Even though they still can't sanitize Steam name input. God. I had a whole rant. I was playing Fall Guys with some people last night. I told them all the things that I think I could finish in 10 minutes if they gave me access to their code base that they haven't finished in months.
Well, there's 3 guys on the team. They're like, on their tasking, they're like, okay, should we fix the naming thing? But it's like, but guys, we could retire. Yeah.
Yeah, we could just be lazy and keep making money from the cosmetics we already have planned.
Let's just make the Sonic cosmetic.
Yep. God.
Anyway, it's just, I think the other interesting notion about that is, again, this is totally hypothesizing. There's no information that's come out on this front, but you would expect that Crucible did. I mean, you see, because it had a 6-year development, it had a big development budget, and Amazon would have put whatever they needed to in marketing, blah, blah, blah. You can't, I think maybe what this also shows is you can't just throw money at games. Like, throwing money at the problem alone is not enough to guarantee you're going to make a good game.
No, it's true.
There's data from EEDR, we talked about it before, that shows that there is a correlation between the amount of marketing dollars spent and how many copies of a game you sell. But especially with a free-to-play title, that doesn't mean shit.
No.
Because your experience has to be engaging if you want to be able to pull players into the ecosystem enough that you subsequently get that monetization afterwards.
Right. That's why this Avengers game can have success, right? Because it has the IP. People have to buy the game. People buy the game. If the game sucks, it doesn't have longevity, whatever. They make the money, right? From their perspective. But with a free-to-play game, like, your game has to be fucking good. Like, Fortnite wasn't successful because it was a poorly implemented game. Like, that game is well designed. I mean, it may not appeal to me or you or some other people, but like, just from a design perspective, we've read books written by the UX, like one of the UX leads at Epic, who like is insanely smart. So Celia Hodent, shout out.
Well, and the building mechanic is a super unique,
super
thing.
Innovative, right? Totally. So,
and how they pivoted to use Fortnite, what was it, like Save the World, the original like, Horde thing?
Horde defense game into a battle royale.
Like, yeah. And it fucking runs on like a potato Android phone.
It does. And Fall Guys too, right? Like, they're the same thing. They have a very innovative concept. And it's not free to play. It's cheaper though, but it's still not free to play. I think Fall Guys could have gone free to play, and I bet you they regret they didn't. Maybe. I don't know. They probably made a fuck ton of money from sales. So
it went viral enough.
That they didn't need to. Yeah. Even with all the problems, maybe with all the problems, they're happy because now I bet you that it's died a lot, and now they're probably happy they had an entry fee.
Well, then Among Us showed up and stuff. It's just we talked about this a little bit in our Discord. If you're hearing this and this sounds interesting to you, we do talk about these things outside of the podcast with community members. We were talking about it with Rollick, actually, who's in the chat right now on Twitch. But he was talking to us about some ARPGs he was playing, how they were from different studios of all kinds of regions. Oh my gosh, Diablo.
Diablo?
Yeah, Diablo. I couldn't say it. And I can't remember the other game he was saying on the other end, but it was made by one guy.
Oh, Chronicon.
Chronicon. And he was actually saying he thought that one might have been the most compelling one. from a kind of game design perspective. And he, we got into a discussion. I was thinking about, is there a correlation between, the amount of designers who are providing input into the design of a game and sort of the pureness and quality of the design that comes out, right? Like if you have a big AAA studio and you have your sandbox design lead, and then you have your like weapon design lead, and then you have your character mechanics design lead, they've really got to be on the same page to make it.
I think that's the job of like the lead designer, right? The head designer in how well they integrate those design teams is how good the AAA game is going to be. Unlike an indie game where you got like two dudes discussing what they want from the game. So like it's way easier to manage those design problems. Totally. Like God of War is a game I'm thinking of that I'm sure had like a billion design teams, right? Like there was a guy probably dedicated just to like how the axe would come out of the tree or whatever. Right? Yeah, I remember we talked about that. So like, and that's crazy. That lead designer must have done an amazing job to integrate all these teams together for this. And maybe with these other games, they did not do such a good job.
Yep, it's clearly something that's not easy. I'm sure everybody would be doing it. Something that it's interesting you brought up God of War. Corey Barlog was the lead designer on that one. Him and Neil Druckmann, is that his name? The guy at Naughty Dog. Like if it seems like the Sony studios have got something figured out on that front because they put out some bangers last generation, and there's also like a strong. I don't know. It seems like I'm sure under the hood, like as he talks in the podcast, Corey Barlog talks about the podcast. There's a super special talent involved with just managing all those design inputs and coming up with a cohesive experience.
I'm sure.
So
I mean,
it's
like
not easy.
Yeah, I mean, like we even just like us and Josh discussing a design mechanic can be hard to come to a consensus sometimes, right? Like, and we're just three opinions. Imagine like that where there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of opinions, right? It's crazy.
Well, and not only that, but those, especially as you get higher up that design chain, those opinions are like shaped from decades of experience, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
it's not like it's some dude who made Halo 1 tell you this is how the like fucking battle rifle should feel in Halo Infinite, and people are like, what do I say to that?
Yes, so there's got to be a unique talent there. I'm confident that there is, and being able to execute this cohesive experience with all those.
Sean brings up The Last of Us 1, and he said that it felt like three different games to him. Like there was a combat game, a puzzle game, and a story game, and it wasn't necessarily meshed well together. There's another game I played called Fear, which is actually a horror game I love, and it had this exact same problem. It had combat sections and then horror sections. You would like do a gunfight, and then you would move on. You would walk through hallways, and scary shit would happen, and exposition would happen. Then you do another gunfight, and they were like literally completely separate. I think The Last of Us integrates it better, but I do see what he's saying, right? And a lot of games have this issue. I think a lot of AAA games where you have a section where you're fighting, you have a section where you're storying, and then you have a section where you're puzzling, right? Mm-hmm. Doom was like that for sure, right? Like it was rare that you're getting combat and puzzling, or story and puzzle and combat all together, right? They're very separate, and because it's really hard to combine all those elements together. That's why like Portal, for example, is a really, really popular game, is really respected for its design, because it actually managed to give you story and puzzle and action all at the same time, especially Portal 2.
Yep. I gotta think, Portal also started out as a small team, right? I don't know how big the final one. I gotta imagine it's still probably like 20-ish.
I'm sure
people.
Portal 2 was bigger, but yeah.
I'm sure, yeah. But the initial one was a small team, and just got to think there's some magic there in having a purity in design there when you have a cohesive singular vision.
I will tell you that as far as I know, and this is like rumor, but it may be true. Dota 2, a huge game by Valve now, right? Ice Frog was like the last person managing Dota 1. Is this guy, some mystery guy named Ice Frog, who's doing all the balance for Dota 1. In theory, as far as I've heard, he is still basically solely responsible for balance and design, like final design changes in Dota 2. and that may be one of the reasons why that game has remained so cohesive and well balanced and like good, because they let the one guy, like they really as far as the rumors have said, right, I'm sure there are other people making balanced suggestions and stuff, but it seems like is like the guy. It's not like it's a team. It's not like there's like different people trying to. He's the guy. And at some point that becomes valuable, right? To have someone to make the final call. Because if there's no one who can make the final call, then like you end up with this mess.
Yeah, better to have like a really cohesive experience that maybe not everybody likes than something that's muddy, that's kind of just meh across the board, which is what Sean Rollick actually described Crucible as feeling.
Yeah, or the Avengers game maybe too, right?
Yeah. It was just kind of like fine across the board. Nothing that really stuck out or whatever. And maybe that could be one of the reasons. It was a big team. You can't just throw money at games. It'll be interesting to see as we wrap this topic up.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see as these bigger companies continue to try to jump into games. Like I just had this conversation with Turtle Fist Pump, who might be in the chat right now, on Instagram. We were talking about how actually Microsoft has where they are right now, because from my perspective, I would argue Microsoft just got super fucking lucky with Halo when they launched the original Xbox, and that I personally kind of felt like they didn't really get gaming until like Phil Spencer showed up relatively recently. Until then, it was like a really Epic made Gears. They bought Gears from Epic. Forza, is I think not to diminish anything about Forza or the people who like it, but I think it's a more straightforward intellectual property to manage. It's a car game,
right?
So yeah, I think there's some you gotta just there's learnings that need to happen where these companies that up to, I think on a lot of other things they do, you can just throw money at a problem. You can just hire the software team to pump out the new app that provides this new convenient experience for business and enterprise customers. You just throw money at it and it works because you have the resources to make it happen. You know how to interview the right people. In games, you can interview the right people, hire the right people, the people with decades of experience in the genre of the game that you want to make and everything like that, and you can still get this.
Yeah, no, totally. I think this is one of the reasons why studios like Ubisoft keep making more Assassin's Creed games, because the core design is there. The really hard part of building this cohesive core design is done, and now they just need to like innovate slightly on it and do a lot more art and change the setting, right? I think that's why a lot of studios do this IP, like rely on these IPs to make the same game but update it over and over, because you got the initial part done. The hard part of the cohesive design is basically done, and now you just have to make it a little better.
Yeah, making games is hard. I think there's a Corey Barlag again. I think it's on the Game Maker's Notebook is the name of the podcast. He is just explaining like making a game is way more of an art form. There's a lot of technology involved, but it is such a art form on so many levels. A creative endeavor, and creative endeavors can't always be one, captured in a box, estimated in a box, and anticipated in a box. Sometimes Corey was explaining that like the axe throwing mechanic was something they fought about, I want to say somewhere between 6 months and 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
And that the way it actually at the end got like close to the final implementation was they just told the guy who was working on the axe thing, like, do the axe thing, and they didn't hear from him for 6 months like on his progress or what the fuck he was doing. They were just like, he's doing it, he's got it under control, and 6 months later he had the axe thing, and they were like, it needed a few more tweaks, if I remember correctly, after that, but then there was the axe thing, like, so how do you manage that? There's no way like I can go to my manager and be like, just give me 6 months, okay? I'll see you in 6 months. It's gonna be hype,
right?
Right. Like, it doesn't
with the game, you should,
right?
right? The sole person. That's another example of like the Ice Frogs thing I was saying. This one guy did it, and it came out fine. Like, you just gotta do it. And have someone make. It's way better to make a decision than not, right?
Yep.
Even if that decision isn't necessarily the absolute best one, you can fix that later. Anyway, where can people find us?
It's crazy. KOKoalaEntertainment.com. There you can find us. Links to all of our social media, including Instagram, Twitter, importantly, Discord. So here is a sneak peek for those listening. Tomorrow we are going to be live streaming here on Twitch right now. If you're listening to us on audio, we live stream this podcast episode every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, our newest episodes, and then we post them subsequently to all your favorite podcast directories. We're going to actually have 2 coming your week because Skylar's been slammed doing something else, hasn't had time to post the audio versions for you, so look out for that.
I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, I never edited that podcast.
It's okay, because tomorrow, special live stream with the community, we'll be hanging out playing some games, but then we'll finish it with something new, big new Discord update.
If you were here last week, we told you about Parthenon coming. Well, it's coming tomorrow.
Bang! Yes, big new update to our Discord. Discord is the home of the experience for our community. It's also where we have started to divulge some sneak peeks into the universe of our upcoming game for right now planned for PC and Xbox. So join it. We also do giveaways. Man, we do giveaways everywhere. If you like winning free stuff, we're your guys. Join us on Instagram on that front or Discord. We do giveaways every 3 weeks too. Follow. Again, just go to our website. You got links to all this goodness, our TikTok, our social media. We just also jumped into GIF Your Game, soon to become the new gamer TikTok. We are up there. All our wall of highlights are up there. And you can go see what all the insane Rocket League people, all the clips they're hitting all the time with some sweet Marcus editing.
Sweet, and some sweet Evan Coulter music.
Evan Coulter music, yes. You can find links to his music on all the posts that use it. We have links to his SoundCloud and his Spotify. Check it out.
Thanks for listening. Talk to you guys next week. Actually, tomorrow. Come to the Parthenon reveal.
Woo! See ya.
Bye.